All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Tonight, I'd like to update the American people on the international effort that we have led in Libya, what we've done, what we plan to do, and why this matters to us. I want to begin by paying tribute to our men and women in uniform, who once again have acted with courage, professionalism, and patriotism. They have moved with incredible speed and strength. Because of them and our dedicated diplomats, a coalition has been forged and countless lives have been saved. For more than 4 decades, the Libyan people have been ruled by a tyrant, Muammar Gaddafi. He has denied his people freedom.
All right, so I have a couple little tidbits of information on these women, so I'm going to share them with you. So first of all, they're all virgins, or allegedly virgins, okay? They swear
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. They might have been virgins when they were hired, and I doubt that. I can guarantee you, after serving under Gaddafi for a while, they are no longer virgins.
Right. So when they first get hired, they take a vow of chastity and they become official bodyguards. They have to swear to Gaddafi that they are definitely virgins, they haven't had sex. Another requirement is that they need to dress up when they're on the job. And by dress up, I'm not talking about wearing bodyguard gear. I'm talking about wearing makeup, jewelry, and heels.
ما عنديش مثلا مدارك وبعد نظر وإن هذا دفاع عن الوطن وهذا لا شفت القائد أنا بعتز فيه كتير وشفت بيخرج بنات قلت لا لازم أكون مثلهم ضروري أكون مثلهم.
نعتبر أن حراسة معمر القذافي ليست حراسة بشر لحم ودم. قيمة معمر قيمة احنا لنا قيم
العسكرية أثرت فينا نحن يعني تعلمنا الضبط الربط طاعة الأوامر هذه حتى في بيتي يعني فادتني.
عندما فتحت أعطت للمرأة حريتها باعتبار المرأة تشكل نصف المجتمع.
We were the personal nurses of Gaddafi and his large family with all his children and grandchildren, and we always accompanied him on his foreign trips. We were divided in shifts, the 5 of us. We drew our timetable ourselves and decided who worked when, as well as who traveled with him. Everyone gets sick once in a while, but generally he was in excellent health. I wish everyone had the kind of health that Gaddafi had. I don't know who created this image of his nurses and his female bodyguards. How could anyone in their right mind assume that we could have any intimate relationship with Gaddafi? His wife, children, grandchildren, officials, they were around him all the time. Likewise, he never made any passes at us. Gaddafi was quite considerate. I don't know much about how the nannies were treated in his family, but as for us, he treated us very well. He never shouted at us, was always calm and friendly. Every year on September 1st, Gaddafi presented us with souvenirs, like this medallion with his picture, and this watch with his picture too. He gave those kinds of presents not only to his nurses, but to everyone who worked in his inner circle.
When my friends here ask me how is it like to live in Tripoli, the first thing comes to mind that women are very free under the leadership of Muammar Gaddafi. The government really doesn't impose anything on anybody. You can wear what you want. Women can travel without any permission from your dad or your husband or any male figure in the family. I consider that a privilege for a Middle Eastern woman when I compare myself to my sisters in Saudi Arabia and the pain and the torture they're going through, sometimes just because they're driving a car or dating someone they love or not wearing the Muslim outfit, I mean by that hijab, which is very, very private choice, and it's totally up to the woman if she wants to wear it or not, in my humble opinion.
And the workers we spoke to, chosen by us, not the management, seemed genuinely proud of what women had achieved in the great socialist Jamahiriya.
قيام سلطة الشعب عام 1969 قامت الثورة، تحررت المرأة، بدت المرأة هي نصف المجتمع في ليبيا، بدت ننظر ان في المرأة في ليبيا أحسن بأي مرأة في الوطن العربي ككل.
بالنسبة للطلاق والجواز، يعني كانت المرأة تطلق بدون أي حق شرعي، لكن بالنسبة الحمد لله في المؤتمرات الشعبية إن الرجل الطرف الثاني ما يقدرش يعني يطلق المرأة اللي بتكون من إذن منها، يعني تكون هي موافقة ويتجوز اللي موافقة منها هي. الحمد لله يعني هذه إنجاز كبير وكويس بالنسبة للمرأة.
And is that divorce law agreed by all the men in Libya as well?
لا في بعض الرجال مفهوم، في بعض الرجال لا، لكن الحمد لله القرار هذا بالنسبة للقرار السائر يعني.
Libya is one of few countries in the Islamic world where women are not only seen but also heard. The Dark Lady herself told us that the leader is a great liberator who has freed women from the tyranny of their backward fathers.
نود أن نواكب عصر الحضارة والتطور. لا نريد أن لا نبحث عن الاستعمار ولا نبحث عن الشر ولا نبحث عن السلام والاستقرار للبشرية في جميع أنحاء العالم.
Exploited their wealth, murdered opponents at home and abroad.
When you go to Libya, you get free education. I'm talking about college education, free health care. And today they're telling us that Gaddafi is killing his own people, but yet he's the same one who's giving them everything. Free education, free health care, feeding his own people, and killing them again. Does that make sense to you?
Colonel Gaddafi came to power in 1969. Inspired by Egyptian leader Nasser's nationalism and pan-Arabism, his revolution took the motto freedom, socialism, unity. His government directed oil revenues to healthcare, housing, and education. Under Gaddafi, Libyans had among the highest per capita incomes and life expectancies in Africa.
Education. Education is free for everybody, even if you're a foreigner. You can go to school for free until you get your PhD or honor chair, PhD. You can go as far as you want and you don't pay a penny except your pencils and notebooks, and they're still supported by the government. Basically you pay fraction of the real price, and that's applied to the food, applied to the supply, to the cars, and all necessary things in life.
You pay for your books.
عشان تدفع فلوس الكتب بتاعك؟ لا لا. You know?
Nothing?
No. Free. It's free, you know. Education in Libya free.
When you say free, do you mean no money at all?
Just.
Does free mean free in Libya?
Yes, free, yes. 16 dinars a year. It means nothing.
How much is 16 dinar? In dollar, maybe 40. 1 year.
No, not $40. No.
No, $40.
16 dinars.
Dinar, $14. Yeah.
1-4. Tell them.
Yes.
That my cousin.
Yes.
In the United States.
ابن عمها في أمريكا. Yeah.
has a master's degree.
عنده ماجستير. Okay.
She now owes the bank more than $100,000
عندها بنك. Yes.
because she had to pay tuition to go to school.
Yeah. I know that because you know.
No. Tell them. Make sure they tell them.
بيقول لك عشان واحدة تقرا غدا في الماجستير دفع $100,000 عشان تقرا. We are free.
So in the United States, to get an education is almost impossible.
Yes, قالت لك في أمريكا عشان تحصل تعليم مستحيل. We here.
Very special.
Free, yes, free, yes.
Tell them lucky.
يا قالت لكم أنتم محظوظين.
Well, actually, I have two questions, if that's okay. The first question is, if you have anything to say to President Obama, what would it be?
عندكم أي حاجة بتقولوها للرئيس أوباما؟
امتحانات. ما فيش امتحانات. الأول قصفونا وإحنا في لحظة امتحان كنا قصفونا.
She said that they have a hard time to make a final examination, but they are trying to just finish this final examination. So they they working under fire.
كانت أضرار مادية في تلك اللحظة وبعدين عقبت أضرار نفسية. طبعا ما عادش يقدروا ينتجوا.
First it was physical just damaging, and now this started to be psycho damaging.
صارت انهيارات عصبية لبعض الفتيات.
Collapse for civilians, you know, especially for girls, you know.
حالات الفزع.
Terrifying, you know.
تعال ما ذكرتك فيه.
عندك سؤال؟ He has a question for you.
Yes.
نبي نعرف وين حماية المدنيين؟ مش في قرار في 1970 73.
He asked about what to protect civilians. What is this?
حماية مدنيين.
This to protect civilians like this.
When
and they are civilians, you know, they are not military.
Yes.
هذا إرهاب قتل.
So my second question would follow on your question, and that is, what do you think of the NATO explanation for why they are doing this, that this is humanitarian intervention? Is NATO telling the truth or not?
بتقول لك هل الناتو الوحيد في الأطلس بيقول الحقيقة ولا لا؟
لا الحقيقة. هما فئتين داخلية، هذا صراع داخلي. كيف ينصر الفئة على الأخرى؟
Conspiracy.
Can you see in the back? Okay.
تقولوا ما فيش
illegal.
Yes.
ما فيش أي تدخل. نحن نعرف القانون.
يقول الطيارات.
نحن نعرف القانون.
عسكري مكان عسكري يضربوا خلاص.
دكتور نحن نعرف
And the aeroplane just flying up there, and we are not. We don't have any military camps here.
Yes.
It's a university.
Yes.
A very decent educational and medical system, the best in Africa. And it scored similarly to Chile and Argentina in the United Nations Human Development Index. Why will not one single American journalist mention this? Why don't they know this? Have they all been picked and selected to be cheerleaders for an imperialist war machine that destabilizes country after country?
What we can do and will do is support the aspirations of the Libyan people.
I'll try to be as brief as I can. When the revolution in 1969 happened, the first thing Gaddafi says that rent is a very, very terrible thing for families. So, and having a house, owning a house, it's a basic human right, and nobody has to pay a rent. My dad never paid a rent. We stayed in our house, our own house, because we have a house, and it's our right as human beings.
When you are newlywed and you don't yet have a job, you get free apartments. Libya is a beautiful country.
Are there billions of dollars that he's spending building homes, building apartments for his people? Yes.
Gaddafi vowed to house every Libyan, many of whom were still living in tents and houses made out of oil drums. He also vowed that his own parents, who lived in a tent, would not be housed until every Libyan was housed.
His mother had only one complaint. Her son insists that they remain in their tent until every Libyan is properly housed.
He fulfilled that promise, his own father dying before he had the opportunity to move him into a home. Large-scale housing construction took place right across the country, all Libyans being given a house or apartment to live in for free.
Our support for governments that are ultimately responsive to the aspirations of the people.
Libya. It's a vast country, hot, dusty, and dry, 90% desert. So you may be surprised to know there's a huge river flowing beneath it, a vital source of drinking water for Libya's cities, a man-made river that could one day even turn desert into farmland.
قاعدين بيرسموا الحكومة يعني هذه نعمة من نعم الله حتى بيوتكم تو فيها لا فيها المية كلها المدينة خديمة طاقة فيها من الحد إلى الحد عندنا الخزانات يدروهم.
Next things come to mind about my leader Muammar Gaddafi is the man-made river, which was a great miracle in my country, that it's most of it desert and we don't have water. And he managed to get the water out of the desert and spread it all over Libya so we can have good water, so our food would taste better.
Has Gaddafi used the oil money to build Libya? Yes. Did Gaddafi use oil money and discover water under the Sahara Desert and brought that water to the surface and brought water from Benghazi all the way to the border almost of Tunisia? Did he impose farming in the desert so that they could feed their own people? Yes.
Supplies of food and fuel were choked off. Water for hundreds of thousands of people in Misrata was shut off.
هي الأنابيب التي تنتقل عبرها ملايين الأمتار
and we cut off much of their source of supply. If we tried to overthrow Gaddafi by force, our coalition would splinter. We would likely have to put U.S. troops on the ground to accomplish that mission, or risk killing many civilians from the air.
حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل فيه.
We are dropping bombs on crowded cities at night where old people and children are sleeping. And we're watching it on CNN.
And terrorized innocent people around the world, including Americans who were killed by Libyan agents.
They're hiding this. They're hiding this. What's going on now? Okay, all the people are here. Just, of course, yes, just to be supportive for our leader Muammar Gaddafi. Okay, and they want to hide this.
But, say analysts, it's not just what's being hidden; it's also what's actually being said.
What we're getting is a pro-U.S., pro-Pentagon, one-sided picture of a situation which fills the media with the idea that there's freedom fighters involved in Libya, and that there's a government regime that's been an atrocious terrorist government for the last, since 1970, roughly. This is nonsense.
Then to call this and say this was government propaganda to hold us there as human shields when they didn't even leave the hotel, the correspondent didn't leave the hotel and go and see for himself, is ridiculous. We were taken there, we went in through the security, we filmed the building, we were given 15, 20 minutes to do that. 5 minutes at Gaddafi's tent, and then we were taken out. And I was literally physically pushed back on the bus when we left. That's how quickly the government officials wanted to get us out. If I sound angry, it is because I am. As I say, I expect lies from the government here. I don't expect it from other journalists. And it's frankly incredibly disappointing to me, Wolf.
Our driver's...
Get in the car, Mary.
You guys! Wait!
Get in, Mary.
Wait!
Sway! You in, Mary?
Yeah, I'm in.
Okay, just calm down. Sway, we're cool. Down, get down!
Okay, we're leaving this area because there's gunfire all around us, and we believe that Gaddafi's forces are doing a roundabout movement, so we are rushing out of this area.
You alright, guys? Alex?
Everybody's fine.
Hot water from a pot was poured upon the head of this woman. Now, when you see the burns on her body, throughout her body, from her head all the way down to her legs and possibly her feet, you should question, did this woman stand right there while hot water was poured on her? And it is said in this video that she resided and worked in the Gaddafi family compound. Over the last many months, the Gaddafi compound has been bombed by NATO. Being bombed by NATO means that you're going to have lots of bodies that have been burned by hot metal, hot liquids from the bombs. So this is what you see with this lady. Are they using her? Coaching her in what to say? Is she afraid for her life? I'm sure she is, because people know that she worked for the Gaddafis. She lived in that compound.
At 11 o'clock that night, approximately 1 hour after you told the American people it was a video, you say to your family, 2 officers were killed today in Benghazi by an Al-Qaeda-like group. You tell the American people one thing, you tell your family an entirely different story. We know, not we think, not it might be, we know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest. State Department experts knew the truth. You knew the truth, but that's not what the American people got.
Journalists were arrested, sexually assaulted, and killed.
Repeated affirmations is essentially this. I'm going to try to tell you that 2 + 2 is 5. And how am I going to convince you of that? Well, let's say I got Stephen Hawking to talk in his way, in a muffled tone, about the new mathematics which allows 2 + 2 to be 5. And then I got a Nobel Prize winner who said, yes, there are conditions under which 2 + 2 could be 5. And then another speaker and another speaker. And pretty soon it's repeated so much that you start to believe that maybe 2 + 2 is 5 or could be 5. That's what repeated affirmations is. Say the lie over and over again with authority figures, and it starts to be believed.
You must remember, dear people of America, that whenever government wants you to think and act in a certain way that would bring justification to an action that they are already planning to make, they must make the person that they hate a boogeyman.
Faced with this opposition, Gaddafi began attacking his people.
يا أصدقائي في أوروبا، يا صديقي المسكين برلسكوني يلي مغلوب على أمرك، افتح الإذاعة الليبية. يا صديقي المسكين سيراكوزي، افتح الإذاعة الليبية. لكن ننصحك داخل مهديات، قبل عين بالعين والباب يظلم، الطفل بالطفل والعائلة بالعائلة والبيت بالبيت والمقر بالمقر. إذا قررنا نحن قادرون على أن ننتقل إلى أوروبا مثل الجراد مثل النحل. ولكن ننصحكم أن تتراجعوا قبل لا تحل بكم الكارثة. أولا انظروا للشعب الليبي. هل الشعب يحكمه دكتاتور؟ هل هذا الشعب مكبوت متسلط عليه؟ هذا الشعب تنادى من كيف زحفت الجماهير من كل مكان بدون امر من معمر الجزائر. انا نفسي فوجئت بالسيل العرم من جماهير الشعب الليبي، الرجال، النساء، العائلات، الاطفال. انظروا اطفال، انظروا الاطفال، انظروا العائلات، انظروا النساء. من جابهم معمر قذافي، جاوا في عراق، جاوا بقوة التحدي. هذه هي الشجاعة، هذا هو التحدي. هذا اليوم يوم مشهود يوجه فيه الشعب الليبي رسالة عالمية وتاريخية تكتب في التاريخ أنه بعد 100 يوم من القصف المتوالي ليل ونهار والصواريخ والقنابل تخرج العائلات والأطفال والرجال والنساء إلى الساحات وتغص بها الميادين والشوارع، ليس في طرابلس بس ولكن في كل المدن الجماهيرية.
ورئيس الاستخبارات أسلك بالأسماء عبد الله السنوسي، أبو زيد دوردة، تهامي خالد. كانت اجتماعات مكثفة للتعاطي والتعامل مع
d'America di poter fare intervenire anche i nostri velivoli.
أكد رئيس الوزراء الإيطالي السابق سيلفيو برلسكوني أن ما حدث في ليبيا لم يكن ربيعا ولا ثورة، بل كان قرارا للسلطات الفرنسية بالتدخل العسكري في هذا البلد وتقديم نزاع داخلي يجري فيه على أنه ثورة لتبرر أمام المجتمع الدولي تدخلها في ليبيا. وقال برلسكوني أن الرئيس الفرنسي السابق نيكولا ساركوزي كان متحاملا علي لأنه ذهب إلى ليبيا ورأى ملصقات كبيرة تحمل صورة القذافي وهو يعانقني، فعاد إلى أتباعه يقول أن برلسكوني وإيطاليا سلبانا كل الغاز والنفط الليبي، مشيرا إلى أن الطائرات الفرنسية بدأت بمهاجمة ليبيا قبل أن يتخذ قرار مشترك بهذا الشأن.
The only kind of real fantasy. Illusions are a common thing. I try to live in dreams. It seems as if it's meant to be. Dreams are my reality. A different kind of reality. Of loving in the night, and loving seems alright, although it's only fantasy.
I made it clear that Gaddafi had lost the confidence of his people and the legitimacy to lead.
Go to hell, Obama! We're not afraid from you. We're not afraid. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. This is the Libyan people, not you. This is the Libyan people. All the Libyan people with Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi, our leader. We will not let him go, and he will not go. There's no revolution after Muammar Gaddafi revolution. There's no revolution. The only revolution that's in the Muammar Gaddafi revolution. Go to hell, Sarkozy, and Obama. Keep bombing, keep losing your money. We're not afraid. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. You should understand this word. We are with Muammar Gaddafi. All the Libyan people with Muammar Gaddafi. You are nothing, Obama. You are nothing. And the NATO, where is the safety that the NATO talk about? Where's the democracy of your country? Leave us alone. Leave us Let us live in peace. Let us live in peace. We won't live in peace. And peace with Muammar Gaddafi. Muammar Gaddafi give us the safety. Give me the freedom. Give me the freedom. Give the Libyan people the freedom.
In this particular country, Libya, at this particular moment, we were faced with the prospect of violence on a horrific scale.
At this particular session, they were debating nothing more exciting than a new system of awards for good citizenship. Even so, there was plenty of argument.
To be blunt, we went down that road in Iraq.
The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle East. They were... What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing.
And so at my direction, America led an effort with our allies at the United Nations Security Council to pass a historic resolution that authorized a no-fly zone to stop the regime's attacks from the air and further authorized all necessary measures to protect the Libyan people.
With shouts of dissent focusing on the U.S. role in bombings over Libya, protesters marched under intense heat in front of the White House.
Foreign intervention and bombing does not bring peace, nor democracy, nor freedom to any people. It kills many innocent civilians.
Since March, the U.S. started using drones to bomb Libya in a UN-mandated no-fly zone there. Protesters here cite reports from the Libyan Health Ministry claiming more than 700 people have been killed and more than 4,000 wounded. The Obama administration says it's carrying out military strikes for humanitarian reasons and save lives. But protesters here aren't convinced.
Since when did NATO show that it cares about all the refugees? Look at Iraq. Look at Afghanistan. I mean, look at Palestine. For years, the Palestinians have been suffering under terrible oppression.
Although the White House has received some support for military action in Libya, it has also received severe criticism. President Obama himself has been rebuked by members of Congress, both Republican and Democrat, for not seeking congressional approval beforehand. And U.S. opposition to military operations in Libya is growing in general, according to recent polls.
Obama needs to understand he's a human being like everyone else. So when he does that, does he promote democracy in America and promote violence in Ivory Coast in Africa? That's what he means? We got to tell him that.
Signs that U.S. war policy will change are doubtful. Attempts to cut spending for combat operations in Afghanistan to hasten U.S. troop withdrawals were voted down, as were efforts to bar the Pentagon from using funds to enforce the NATO-led no-fly zone over Libya.
Because of the oil, simple as that. They don't care about what the African people think. Democracy for them is not for Africa. It's only for Western country.
To date, the U.S. spends $10 million a day bombing Libya while involved in war in Afghanistan and still occupies Iraq with 47,000 troops. Part of that spending has included 801 strike missions against Libya.
Our most effective alliance, NATO, has taken command of the enforcement of the arms embargo and the no-fly zone. Last night, NATO decided to take on the additional responsibility of protecting Libyan civilians.
Living in the southern part of Libya, where he talks about 12 times a day, they are bombed in the little town in the south where they live, bombed by NATO. NATO claims, as they always do, that it is a military site that they're bombing. And they're bombing the same places over and over again. How many times do you have to destroy the so-called military assets? Terrorizing these people 12 times a day for 3 months.
Yes, exactly. My area is bombed from the NATO forces 12 times until yesterday. Right. They get fears and terrifying everywhere because we have near houses, my area, and they say they targeting is the military locations. But exactly, we have a lot of civilians' houses that every day children cries from what's happening from the NATO governments. They say we're coming to protect civilians. Under protect civilians, they kill civilians. We speaking about 3 months, every day maybe 12 days, 12 times.
every day.
Yeah, yeah.
12 times every day for 3 months.
And now it gets horrible in this time.
It's intensifying.
Yes, aggression is more worse. They say military locations, but okay, you destroyed these military locations, so why are you bombing again?
In the face of the world's condemnation, Gaddafi chose to escalate his attacks, launching a military campaign against the Libyan people. Innocent people were targeted for killing. Hospitals and ambulances were attacked.
This is for Obama and you, Sarkozy. You said you want to protect the civilians. Those are the civilians you want to protect inside the hospital. This is not military place. This is hospital, female and surgical department in a hospital. You want to protect only civilians, bomb on their heads. This is the blood of the civilians from a hospital. Those the civilians you want to protect. Thank you very much.
Cities and towns were shelled, mosques were destroyed, and apartment buildings reduced to rubble.
The weeks of bombardment on Sirte have caused massive destruction and the loss of life. CCTV correspondent Yamawul Osmal went into the city and found out more about the casualties of war.
Empty streets, abandoned buildings. Sirte has been on the front line in the fight for Libya for almost 4 weeks. Most of the residential buildings have been shelled. We enter one of the abandoned apartment blocks. The higher we go, the more obvious the destruction.
We're inside one of the heavily shelled apartment blocks in Sirte. This flat here looks like it's taken a direct hit. We're in somebody's bedroom. There are pictures everywhere, pictures of the old wedding picture, family picnic, and pictures of the children. There are stuffed animals everywhere. It apparently belongs to a family. There are clothes everywhere. If we move to the hallway here, you can witness the sheer devastation in this building. The school bag belonging to one of the children, their English book, and this Valentine Day card from someone named Muhammad to Hanan, dated this year. It just goes to show that in the battle for Sirte, most of the targets have been civilian.
From the top floors, we can see the fighting raging outside as NTC forces shell sniper positions using everything at their disposal.
Well, I'm actually standing in what was someone's bedroom. The sheer devastation and the destruction to this civilian area is hard to describe. According to NTC forces, this building was targeted by NATO missiles because it was being used by pro-Gaddafi forces as a base in this civilian area.
And capabilities to jam regime communications.
Another round of NATO airstrikes pounded Tripoli in the early hours of Tuesday morning. The city has undergone a series of bombings over the last couple of days, with Libya TV reporting that a telecommunications building was destroyed in the explosions.
Nearly 700,000 men, women, and children who sought their freedom from fear. We knew that if we waited one more day, Benghazi a city nearly the size of Charlotte, could suffer a massacre that would have reverberated across the region and stained the conscience of the world. It was not in our national interest to let that happen. I refused to let that happen. Military jets and helicopter gunships were unleashed upon people who had no means to defend themselves against assaults from the air. One young Libyan who came to his aid said, "We are your friends. We are so grateful to those men who are protecting the skies."
I'm going to talk to the NATO. You said that you are coming here to Libya to protect the civilians, but the truth, you are attacking the civilians. So what? And you are make this as a reason as a cover to do every what you want under it. So I want to say for you, do every what you want. And the funny thing, you are saying for our leader Muammar Gaddafi to go out. We're out. Muammar Gaddafi in every heart of Libyan people. If you want him to go out, you should go for every heart and take it. Muammar Gaddafi from them. So we are with our leader Muammar Gaddafi, and we will never give up from him. You bumping us because you think we will give up and we will scary or afraid of, but you are wrong. We are with our leader Muammar Gaddafi. Do ever what you want, but you are still with him.
The United States will not be able to dictate the pace and scope of this change. Only the people of the region can do that. But we can make a difference. As one Libyan said, for the first time, we finally have hope that our nightmare of 40 years will soon be over.
حرام عليهم بلادنا يضربوا فيها يدمروا في بلادهم يضربوا فيها معمر بوم على تضربوا فيه يضربوا فيه الله هو معمر هو ليبيا وبس الكلاب اصبحوا خلاص جردان سندرنا لهم هم يضربوا ويقصوا سندرنا لهم الكلاب الله معمر ليبيا وبس قاعدين يضربوا صبح وليل والبلد الناس راقدين يضربوا فيهم سندرنا له عناه يضربوا طيارات زعلان يضربوا حرام عليهم يضربوا في بلادنا حرام يضربوا فيهم علاش يقولوا ما يعبوا في المدنية ما يعبوش فيهم يضربوا فيهم.
With the time and space that we have provided for the Libyan people, they will be able to determine their own destiny. And that is how it should be. And tonight, I can report that we have stopped Gaddafi's deadly advance.
He may be faced with an ongoing rebellion, an increasingly destructive NATO bombing campaign and worldwide condemnation, but Colonel Gaddafi has vowed that he will stay in Libya to the bitter end.
I authorized military action to stop the killing and enforce UN Security Council Resolution 1973. We struck regime forces approaching Benghazi to save that city and the people within it.
So in every nation, brothers and sisters, there is dissatisfaction. And what the CIA does is go into a country and move among the people that are dissatisfied to stimulate a revolt against a leader that they don't like because they want regime change.
In this effort, the United States has not acted alone. Instead, we have been joined by a strong and growing coalition. This includes our closest allies, nations like the United Kingdom, France.
So something is under this. And so when America, England, France, three imperialist powers want to destabilize that country, is it that you're so concerned? Now listen to this hypocrisy, American people. Is it that you're so concerned over the blood that is being shed in Libya when you look the other way when the Israeli Defense Force was bombing the innocent people of Gaza? Unarmed men, women, and children, but our government looked the other way. You looked the other way when the Israeli Defense Force went into Lebanon thinking that they were going to have an easy victory. Then you had to come out with your tail between your legs. Don't tell me and wise black people or white people that you're interested in black suffering. Where were you in Rwanda? Where are you in the Congo? Why did you go to Darfur? Because oil is there. No, you don't want to save the Libyan people. That's your noble motive to hide your wicked agenda.
The problem is really dumb people. They get a say in everything too, and they're subject to a lot of tricks. They're subject to nationalism. They're subject to these kind of ridiculous rah 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 America speeches that don't say jack shit. They say nothing. It's all just this cheerleading fucking event, and they're subject to it. They can't help it. They're dumb. They don't know they're being bullshitted. They grew up around dumb people. They go to work with dumb people. There's no one in their family that's interesting or asks any questions at all, and they just get sucked right into it, man.
This society is so greedy, we're willing to go to war. We're willing to go places and send these big metal machines that kill people and fuck people up just so we can make more money.
Is the developed world sincere in its proclamation to help the developing world rise? Or is this humanitarian lipstick on an imperialist pig?
All of whom have fought by our sides for decades. And it includes Arab partners like Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, who have chosen to meet their responsibilities to defend the Libyan people.
Libya's cash-starved rebels got a much-needed boost. Nations here signing off on promises of more than $1 billion of aid.
Gaddafi declared he would show no mercy to his own people. He compared them to rats and threatened to go door to door to inflict punishment.
A month after Tripoli fell into rebels' hands, those who backed the old regime remain defiant, but fearful. Fervent support for the ousted leader dissolves once they see our camera.
People here like Muammar Gaddafi.
We are television, so could you tell it on camera? Why?
This is danger.
It's the same situation with others too.
Gaddafi's 100% good.
We don't want this revolution. We don't know the rebels.
We want them to go away.
We are from television, so but could you tell it on camera?
No, thanks. If I appear in front of the camera, they will send a bullet to my head. The criminals, you don't know them? You call them the rebels. Hey guys, do you remember Ihab, the black guy? He was arrested a few days ago, after he appeared on TV. Don't do that.
If we say something in favor of Gaddafi, they can kill us and arrest us. Of course, many are in fear. The rebels, they only represent themselves, not the Libyan people. This revolution started with killings to intimidate through fear. Their hands are covered in blood.
That's all I have to say about my leader, because I hear the media, and I'm in Quebec, as I've mentioned, and these things are not mentioned. All I hear that he's a dictator. Talking about dictatorship, I wish anybody can name me any Arabic president that he's not a dictator or they did not kill anybody. Gaddafi was against radicals, and we are targeted by them. We are targeted by Osama bin Laden because we do not practice Sharia in Libya. And that's war against terrorism, and Gaddafi started that war way before George Bush. I just felt like I had to point these out because the world has no idea about what's going on in my home.
In October of 2010, Gaddafi was the first and only leader in the Arab world to formally apologize for the Arab role in the trade and capture of Africans. This infuriated Arab leaders.
Be careful how you manipulate the dissatisfaction in Libya and other parts of the Muslim world.
Anti-Gaddafi rebels freed a prison in Tripoli. Today, CNN has learned that among those liberated inmates are hundreds of men who are believed to be supporters of Al-Qaeda. They're now on the loose. The man who uncovered this story is CNN terrorism analyst Paul Cruikshank. He has been to that prison in the past, joins us live from London. Paul, give us details on just who is now free in Libya.
Well, what we're hearing, Drew, is that up to 600 prisoners from this prison are believed to be pro-Al-Qaeda militants, people who were imprisoned there by Gaddafi, who've been there for several years.
We had a unique ability to stop that violence.
Both Sarkozy and Cameron have announced that they will continue helping the rebels. Particularly, Nicolas Sarkozy has said that NATO will continue bombing Libya and military facilities here in Libya till the rebels take control over the whole of the country.
именно после свержения Каддафи, при активном участии отдельных европейских стран, поток беженцев стал абсолютно бесконтрольным.
Слушайте, люди из НАТО, вы бомбите стену, которая не пропускала поток миграции в Европу. Стену, которая останавливала террористов Аль-Каиды. Этой стеной была Ливия. Вы разрушаете ее. Вы идиоты.
As first a few, then up to 9 African men are shoved into a gatehouse, arrested by anti-Gaddafi forces. They're terrified, sweating, praying, some are crying. They're convinced they're going to be shot. They keep whispering to us, stay here with us, stay here, please.
In just 1 month, the United States has worked with our international partners to mobilize a broad coalition, secure an international mandate to protect civilians, stop an advancing army, prevent a massacre.
This is Hasham Mansour, a 27-year-old Libyan soldier and patriot. He was beaten to death by a crowd who called him a mercenary, depantsed, abused, and then left hanging on a fence. His family and his fiancée were not happy to see this video online.
That we would focus our unique capabilities on the front end of the operation, and that we would transfer responsibility to our allies and partners.
And they take him from ICU and killing him in front of ICU and hanging his body on the wall of the Jalal hospital.
Here is a suspected mercenary being shown out of the same hospital. Under new rebel management, his kind weren't welcome for treatment there. When he was unable to walk out on his own from blood loss, he was physically dragged out, tossed on the sidewalk next to the garbage cans, and then hacked some more.
Thanks to the extraordinary sacrifices of our troops and the determination of our diplomats, we are hopeful about Iraq's future. But regime change there took 8 years, thousands of American and Iraqi lives, and nearly $1 trillion. That is not something we can afford to repeat in Libya. The risk and costs of this operation to our military and to American taxpayers will be reduced significantly. This whole thing only cost us $1 billion, as opposed to $1 trillion. Not a single U.S. troop was on the ground. Not a single U.S. Troop was killed or injured. And that, I think, is a recipe for success in the future. I am both surprised and deeply humbled by the decision of the Nobel Committee. The Nobel Peace Prize has not just been used to honor specific achievement, it's also been used as a means to give momentum to a set of causes. And that is why I will accept this award as a call to action.
Well, this is what we've become, and there's his call to action. And if you believe this world has a right to see this footage, they can make their own decision. Get this video out to everybody and demand YouTube and others stop buckling to government pressure to shut down the truth. You know, you've seen where YouTube admits, their parent company Google, the federal government, is telling them to shut down police brutality videos, shut down videos, quote, critical of the U.S. government. We are becoming the equivalent of communist China and its atrocities. And it's wrong. If we're going to criticize the Chinese for censorship, it's time to point out what's happening. So I'm throwing the gauntlet down. We're putting this up on the YouTube channel, and I'm going to have to take action because, look, the people, like Walter Cronkite said, have a right to not be manipulated and lied to. They have a right to see what's really going on in their name. And that little child in absolute horror with the whole bottom of their face blown off is just a snapshot of the millions that have been killed in these globalist wars. And it needs to stop. It needs to come to an end now.
So, I mean, that is the land of unconfirmed.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
We will work with the international community to provide assistance to the people of Libya who need food for the hungry and medical care for the wounded. We will safeguard the more than $33 billion that was frozen from the Gaddafi regime so that it's available to rebuild Libya.
Early in 2011, Libya was faced with a chaotic insurrection, partly inspired by the revolts in Tunisia and Egypt, and partly led by Islamic fundamentalists. In March, NATO forces, mainly from France and Britain, began aerial bombardment on the pretext of protecting civilians, but the intervention sided with the rebels and armed them in violation of the UN Charter. With NATO's help, the opposition forces occupied the capital and later carried out the extrajudicial killing of Gaddafi. Since NATO's, quote, humanitarian intervention and the murder of Gaddafi, the country's territory has become a battleground between feuding warlords and Islamic fundamentalist groups, including the Islamic State. Libya no longer has a functioning government, and the gains in public welfare under Gaddafi have been greatly diminished.
You went for humanitarian purposes, yet 50,000 Libyans lie dead because the West wanted access to the wealth of Libya.
After all, the money doesn't belong to Gaddafi or to us. It belongs to the Libyan people, and we'll make sure they receive it.
The country's economy plunged into crisis as well. There was a six-fold drop in oil production. Our GDP fell by more than half. Once considered one of Africa's richest nations, now almost a third of all Libyans live below the poverty line. The country also remains torn apart by different political factions.
40 years of tyranny has left Libya fractured and without strong civil institutions.
Gaddafi wasn't sitting in any tent twiddling his thumbs over these last 10 years. This man has been investing in African development. This man has been moving throughout Africa. This man has friends all over the world. He may not be your friend, but if you take him out and kill him like he's some rotten fella that wants to kill his own people, what did you do in Waco? What did you do when your people rose up? Did you talk them out of it? No, they had weapons, you bombed them. What did you do in Philadelphia with the movement? Did you talk them out of their home, or did you bomb them? We didn't hear any outcry from you religious hypocrites that love the lives of human beings. You're a liar and a hypocrite.
Also supporting a transition to the future that the Libyan people deserve. Because while our military mission is narrowly focused on saving lives, we continue to pursue the broader goal of a Libya that belongs not to a dictator, but to its people.
This is the world as it exists today.
In a wealthier suburb of Tripoli, a rival faction had already been absorbed into Libya's central security. They'd just rounded up a group of migrants ready to be moved to a detention center.
It's true that America cannot use our military wherever repression occurs.
Si là en Libye, moi j'ai 2 ans ici en Libye. Je travaille là avec dans la nuit aussi, les policiers sont venus agresser les gens, arrêter les gens. Deuxième foyer, les foyers on habite, ça fait des années qu'on habite là. Ils ont tiré 2 gars sur le pied. Ils ne nous ont pas demandé ni papier ni quoi comme ça là. Ils nous ont pris. Et tout le monde sait que l'Italie n'est pas Italie, la Libye n'est pas un pays de la paix maintenant, c'est un pays sécurisé ou quoi comme ça là, qui n'a pas de, qui a pas de sécurité.
To brush aside America's responsibility as a leader, and more profoundly, our responsibilities to our fellow human beings under such circumstances.
If numbers and arrests are becoming a way for the militias to legitimize themselves, then thousands of migrants who are now residing and working in Libya could also be at risk of being detained.
Would have been a betrayal of who we are. Some nations may be able to turn a blind eye to atrocities in other countries. The United States of America is different.
قول العالم يا كلب قول الله أكبر شريف الله أكبر الله أكبر قول العالم يا كلب قول تعال أنت تعال أقرب شيء يا كلب أقرب قول العالم قول العالم قول يا مصخ يا دورغي يا كلب يا مصخ.
We welcome the fact that history is on the move in the Middle East and North Africa, and that young people are leading the way. Because wherever people long to be free, they will find a friend in the United States.
No. I don't believe it. It's not possible.
I didn't say it would be easy, Neo. I just said it would be the truth.
Stop. Let me out. Let me out. I want out.
I am convinced that a failure to act in Libya would have carried a far greater price for America.
According to some, it's about protecting civilians.
And our resolve is clear. The people of Libya must be protected.
Others say it's about oil.
The only reason they're interested with Libya is about the oil. You think we'd be in Iraq if the major export there was broccoli?
But some are convinced intervention in Libya is all about currency, specifically Gaddafi's plan to introduce the gold dinar, a single African currency made from gold, a true sharing of the wealth.
It's one of these things that you have to plan almost in secret, because as soon as you say you're going to change over from the dollar to something else, you're going to be targeted. There were two conferences on this, one in '96 and another one in the year 2000, called the World Mataba Conference, organized by Gaddafi. And everybody was interested. I think most countries in Africa were keen.
Gaddafi didn't give up. In the months leading up to the military intervention, he called on African and Muslim nations to join together to create this new currency that would rival the dollar and euro. They would sell oil and other resources around the world only for gold dinars. It's an idea that would shift the economic balance of the world. Countries' wealth would depend on how much gold they have, not how many dollars they trade. And Libya has 144 tons of gold. The UK has double that, but 10 times the population.
And do whatever it takes to bring down Gaddafi and usher in a new government.
If Gaddafi had an intent to try to reprice his oil or whatever else the country was selling in the global markets and accept something else as a currency, or maybe launch a gold dinar currency, any move such as that would certainly not be welcomed by the power elite today who are responsible for controlling the world's central banks. So yes, that would certainly be something that would cause his immediate dismissal and the need for other reasons to be brought forth for removing him from power.
It's happened before. In 2000, Saddam Hussein announced Iraqi oil would be traded in euros, not dollars. Sanctions and an invasion followed. Some say because the Americans were desperate to prevent OPEC from transferring oil trading in all its member countries to the euro. A gold dinar would have had serious consequences for the world financial system, but may also have empowered the people of Africa, something black activists say the US wants to avoid at all costs.
The United States should welcome the self-determination of Africans. They certainly have denied self-determination to Africans inside the United States. So we're not surprised by anything that the United States would do to hinder self-determination of Africans on the continent.
The UK's gold is kept here in a secure vault somewhere in the depths of the Bank of England. As in most developed countries, there's not enough to go around. But that's not the case in places like Libya and many of the Gulf states. A gold dinar would have given oil-rich African and Middle Eastern countries the power to turn around to their energy-hungry customers and say, sorry, the price has gone up and we want gold. Some say the US and its NATO allies literally couldn't afford to let that happen.
Of course, there is no question that Libya and the world would be better off with Gaddafi out of power. I, along with many other world leaders, have embraced that goal.
How can Africa be so poor and yet be materially so rich? It's real simple. The answer lies in the Structural Adjustment Programs, SAP, the Structural Adjustment Programs that are imposed on African nations by the International Monetary Fund of Washington, D.C., the World Bank of Washington, D.C., and USAID. These three organizations come into Africa, loan money, and then charge an interest rate on that money that they know the African nations can never pay back, thusly re-enslaving the entire nation and, in fact, the entire continent.
There will be times, though, when our safety is not directly threatened, but our interests and our values are.
Why was Muammar Gaddafi killed? Muammar Gaddafi was murdered because he, along with the other African heads of state, were about to bring into existence Africa's first central bank. They were erecting a central bank in Africa, which was going to do what? Back its money to the resources under the ground in Africa. Now, what would that have done to the global economic order? Remember, the United States dollar isn't backed on any natural resource. The British pound isn't backed on any natural resource. The Canadian dollar, the European Union, their currency isn't backed on any natural resource because Europe doesn't have a lot of natural resources. Africa does. So if they would have been successful in creating a central bank of Africa, coming up with a unitary currency, and then backing that currency to the material wealth under the soil, they would have bankrupted every other economic system in this world from America to Europe to China. That was revolution, and that's why Muammar Gaddafi had to be assassinated, because he was about to help the African heads of state eliminate modern slavery and neocolonialism from the continent.
I've made it clear that I will never hesitate to use our military swiftly, decisively, and unilaterally when necessary to defend our people, our homeland, our allies, and our core interests.
I'll tell you exactly what is really going on in Libya. I will tell you what the mainstream media will not tell you. There are 3 reasons why Gaddafi has to die. And among those 3 reasons, none of them have to do with him killing his own people. Number 1, Gaddafi is the one who gave the opportunity for an African satellite for communication. It is in 1992 that 45 countries in Africa decided that they want to have their own satellite. This will cover internet, telephone communication, and all other communications. But the problem was how to find the money for this project. Where did they get the money from? They decided to go to the IMF. But the IMF knew that sponsoring this will be more dangerous for Western countries. Why? Because Western countries were making $500 million per year for all telecommunication in Africa, even inside Africa. $500 million per year. Not includes interest. That's how much they were making. So it is in 2007 that Gaddafi will come up with most of the money for this project. Africa will now have its first communication satellite, which will give the opportunity to countries like South Africa, Nigeria, Algeria, Angola, Libya, and other countries to now have their own telecommunication satellites. They will now provide communication to their own people. It will only cost African countries $400 million, only a one payment of $400 million to make this happen. Now you imagine how much money does Europe lost because of this? $500 million per year that Gaddafi made them lose by sponsoring this satellite. Just Gaddafi himself comes up with $300 million. And other countries can impeach him. So this is reason number one why they need Gaddafi dead. 2, Gaddafi and African countries decide to create 3 major banks in Africa. 1, the AMF, African Monetary Fund. The African Monetary Fund will headquarter in Cameroon, Yaoundé. This was to be created in 2011, this year. With the African Monetary Fund, African countries will no longer need to go to the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund. So just imagine yourself how much money Europe will lose if the AMF is created. When Western countries found that this is what was happening, they actually wanted to be part of it. I believe it is in 2006 in Yaoundé, Cameroon, that African countries decided that no other countries outside of Africa will be part of the AMF. Now you can imagine what's going on here. Not only that they're trying to cut them money, but on top of that, they don't even want them to be part of this. Because being part of this will mean that they will have to control what is going on. The second bank will be the Central African Bank. The Central African Bank will be headquartered in Abuja in Nigeria. What this bank will do, it will stop African countries from using Western currency. Like if you go to Africa today, countries like Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Gabon, and many other French-speaking countries are using the franc CFA. With this bank, we will have our own currency, like the Naira in Nigeria. Gaddafi, once again, came up with most of the money for this project. And the third bank that was supposed to be created was going to headquarter in Libya, the Bank of Investment. This bank will control most of investment in Africa. The Central Bank of Investment. Now you imagine yourself what's going on here. Gaddafi is trying to break Western economy by doing this. But that's not his intention. His intention is to free Africa from his trap. African people want to be independent. Western countries don't want that. And that's what's going on here. So the money that Obama confiscated stole from Gaddafi is the money that was going to help for all those projects. He's telling you today that Gaddafi is trying to kill his own people with that money. No, Mr. President, you know that that's not true. He probably doesn't even know because he has no experience. He has no experience. He doesn't even know what's going on. He's like a puppy. They tell him what to do. Oh, well, let me inform you, Mr. President, that money was going to sponsor all those projects. That money that you confiscated from Libya. The third reason why Gaddafi has to die has to do with the United States of Africa. This man has been pushing African countries to unite, just like the United States of America. The very first thing that European countries, when they were colonizing African countries, did was to divide African people. When you want to break a powerful home, you have to find a way to turn that family against each other. That's the very first thing Western countries did to keep us from being powerful. The second thing they did was to stop education. Make sure that African people are not educated. Education is the key to success. By us being educated and educating our own people, we are stopping major problems in Africa. And the third thing they did was to place dictators in power in Africa who will give them everything they want. And every time that the population will stand up, these dictators will have the support of European countries to kill those protesters. They were all surprised with what happened in Tunisia, in Egypt, and they took the opportunity to then create a problem in Libya. Not one of you will show me footage of the same uprising that we saw in Egypt, in Tunisia, in Libya. Not one of you will show me that type of footage. This was created by Western countries. When you go to Libya, you get free education. I'm talking about college education, free healthcare. When you are newlywed and you don't yet have a job, you get free apartments. Libya is a beautiful country. And today they're telling us that Gaddafi is killing his own people, but yet he's the same one who is giving them everything. Free education, free healthcare, feeding his own people, and killing them again. Does that make sense to you? Let me tell you what the countries that are bombing Libya today have in common. They are broke. Oh yes, they are broke. Just the United States alone is borrowing money from China. Europe is going down with the euro. Every one of those countries in NATO are broke. And Gaddafi is making it worse by giving African people independence. And that's why you see Hillary Clinton going to Africa and telling African people to reject Gaddafi. Don't deal with Gaddafi. In fact, they've requested that the rebels open an embassy in Washington, D.C., making an illegal movement legal. That's what the Obama administration is doing. Hillary Clinton is also asking African people not to deal with China. Tell me, let me just ask this, man. What can China do to African countries that Western countries haven't done yet? I like to know myself. How worse can it be? As far as I'm concerned, China is not the one going around bombing other countries. I can't remember the last war China has been in. China is not the one going killing African people today with drones. China is not the one fighting in Iraq or Afghanistan in the name of democracy. China is making money. Why not deal with China? What have you done to African people that is good? What have you given African people that is good? When you are going somewhere in Africa, in different African countries, and asking African people not to deal with China, what are we receiving in exchange of that? Other than bombs, drones, and everything else. What are we receiving? China is the #1 investors in Africa. The African satellite that I'm talking about today was put together by Chinese and Russians. We African people will survive. We've survived your drones and your bombing, your insult, and everything else, your humiliations. We've survived that. China is not going to do anything to us that you haven't done yet. So, Mr. President, let me tell you this. If you're not ashamed, I'm ashamed for you. I'm embarrassed for you. The first African-American president. And this is what you're doing to your own country, to the world, to the people of your race. You are the nightmare of Martin Luther King.
Let us look to the future with confidence and hope, not only for our own country, but for all those yearning for freedom around the world. Thank you, God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Gaddafi said no to slavery. Gaddafi said he will not give in. We will remember him as the leader who gave his life for his people. So as you celebrate the death of Gaddafi today, future generation will remember that Gaddafi gave his life on the battlefield.
He was a man so strong and bold. So Bismillah, Rahman Rahim. They were the best of friends, Zapateri, Berlusconi, and Sarkozy of France. Eat, dine, and boonga boonga, and flock together, they did like birds. Handshakes of treachery, hypocrisy, and jealousy soon flooded the press. Popular uprising in Tunisia, Syria, and Egypt rustled the nests. They planted rats and cockroaches to rebel against Gaddafi and cause a blunderous historical mess. In a twinkle of an eye, the eating, the dining, and the boonga boonga must be suppressed, and the best put together to rest, having been replaced by drones from America, Italy, France, and the rest. What a shame! It's a shame! A big shame! Kai! A shame! Yes! While the toothless bulldog of an African Union sat and watched so powerlessly, Libya was ransacked by mafias and ninjas so vehemently. What was his crime? He wanted the African currency for his oil. He wanted to pay the price. He was slaughtered like a dog on his own soil. He rejected the Arab League and flocked with his African identity. He regretted his past and wanted to see Africa in total sanity. Muammar al-Gaddafi was a threat to Western hypocritical capitalists. Free food, shelter, healthcare, and education he gave to his people as a champion of all African socialists. I cry. Gaddafi is gone. Oh no. Oh,
My fellow Americans, tonight I want to talk to you about Syria, why it matters, and where we go from here. Over the past 2 years, what began as a series of peaceful protests against the repressive regime of Bashar al-Assad has turned into a brutal civil war. Over 100,000 people have been killed. Millions have fled the country. In that time, America has worked with allies to provide humanitarian support, to help the moderate opposition, and to
Bin Laden sits in Afghanistan. I believe that this is the time to deploy a globally concerted effort led by the United States, the UK, Europe, and Russia against all sources of terror. Consistently, along 6 or 10 years, Iran, Iraq, Libya, North Korea. This is the only way. Without this clarity of purpose, there will be no world order, no world order.
He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
New World Order, Mr. Oscar. Right. New World Order. Depopulation. Genocide.
How long? Not long! 'Cause what you reap is what you sow!